look. The drives are cool wild. I've got the move that really move 'em. I said chill up and down.
Ladies and gentlemen, my guest at this time is the current host of the Wrestling War Room and the Best Damn Nerd Show on the Teno Media Network, Bimbo Jimbo, James Kincaid. Bimbo Jimbo, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, Philip. Thanks for having me on. It's long overdue, and it's good to see your face amid this pandemic and everything we got going on in the world. So you're a sight for sore eyes. So I'm looking forward to doing this with you.
Hey, man, I'm looking forward to doing it with you too, man. I mean, thank you so much for being here. I mean, you've been really moving the needle since since the pandemic has started. I mean, you look at a Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, the Teno Media Network. I mean, before everything got shut down, you were the voice of All Pro Wrestling. So, you were doing the damn thing, man.
Yeah, trying to keep busy and do whatever I can in pro wrestling, and it's been a lot of fun. And like you said, yeah, trying to keep busy, and find those lanes that you can still do with the shutdown and everything. And fortunately, I did inthekliq with Baby Huey. That was fantastic and stuff. And then this opportunity, like an RKO, came out of nowhere with the Teno Media Network. And so now doing a few shows for them, which, I encourage y'all to go check out their stuff, because there are shows that I do for them. And then they have other shows as well that don't feature, me, but they're still good. Maybe even better. But yeah, definitely check that out. But yeah, keep them busy, man.
All right. Yeah, I love it, man. So we're going to get into the Teno Media Network eventually sometime during the interview. But I just want to get your background, like, how'd you get into radio and journalism? Like, where did all that come about?
Oh, boy. So I grew up a fan of radio and sports broadcasting in general, since I was a little kid. One of my earliest memories that I have is listening to the World Series in my dad's van. Bay Area fans won't want to hear this, but it was the 1988 World Series, and it was Dodgers versus the Oakland A's. And I remember being in my dad's camper van listening to that, because I don't know, I guess that was the only radio we had at the time. It was, again, one of my earliest memories. And the Kirk Gibson home run for the Dodgers in that game was just like, gosh, that was such like a fun memory. And then, as athletic ability waved bye-bye to me at a pretty early age, I knew that I still wanted to do something in broadcasting, something in sports, something in wrestling. And so I like to talk. So that kind of became my lane. And again, this is somebody growing up listening to sports talk, being a big fan of ESPN and Sports Center, Dan Patrick and Stuart Scott and all those people. That was sort of the Gary Radnich from KMBR. That was sort of the lane that I sort of targeted at an early point. It's funny. My freshman yearbook, I just met up with this person, I guess a year ago now. It's funny how quickly time goes, but one of my favorite yearbook signatures ever, because I knew even then I wanted to do something in wrestling. And she wrote in my yearbook, "James, have a great summer and good luck with your wrestling career." So, whereas most people laughed, she was actually supportive. And I got to tell her that recently. I was like, "Hey, I'm doing the dang thing." So, thanks for the support. But so that was how it started for me. And I went to SF State for radio and television broadcasting, and just busted my butt to finally catch a break. And fortunately it worked out at KMBR and then the Golden State Warriors and All Pro Wrestling and Championship Wrestling from there.
Absolutely. I mean, you were working with 107.7 The Bone. That's where you
Yes.
met our good buddy Baby Huey. And
Yeah.
you guys had been covering wrestling for a while, but then I think a couple years ago, you guys officially started the inthekliq podcast.
Yes.
So, you guys were just like, we need our own platform to really branch out on our own. Is that how it happened?
Well, so it's another one of those things where I think Baby Huey was always interested in doing just a specific wrestling show, just as I was. And I had done a few different iterations, and I had started the Best Damn Nerd Show in college, and we would sometimes cover wrestling on there. And I had done a show called Lucha Lowdown, which covered specifically Lucha Underground, which I absolutely loved. And if y'all haven't watched Lucha Underground, I certainly encourage you to go there. It's perfect quarantine programming is going back and rewatching Lucha Underground, because when it was good, it was fire. So I definitely recommend that. So I had done that, and then, I got connected to Baby Huey at the radio station. So we both worked for Cumulus. I was on the KMBR side. He was on the 107.7 The Bone side. And we became fast friends and super close friends over the fact, like, we just shared interests beyond pro wrestling, but, Marvel Cinematic Universe, all the nerd stuff. And, we just very similar interests and very similar type people. So we just sort of connected. I was actually the first guest on the show that he was doing at the time. It was called The Other Guys Podcast. And so I was his first guest on that show. And I just sort of stuck around. I was like a bad penny. You couldn't get rid of me. So that's how that came about. And then we did, it's one of the career highlights to this day. We did WrestleMania Radio Row for WrestleMania 31 in Santa Clara. And so it was Huey and I just interviewing all these wrestlers and different people like that were going to be a part of the show. Paul Heyman, Bray Wyatt, Dean Ambrose and the like. You go boom, boom, boom up down the line, like all these big names that were coming through. Stardust. That's actually, that Radio Row is how I got named Bimbo Jimbo, because Stardust, Cody Rhodes in character, like we were doing the interview, and it was, it's Baby Huey with 107.7 The Bone. With me is James. And Stardust like stopped. He's like, wait a minute. He's like, why don't you have a name? He's Baby Huey. You're Bimbo. You're James. I was like, we were just talking about off the air, like what my sort of 107.7 The Bone name should be. And so Stardust on the fly came up with Bimbo Jimbo, and it just sort of stuck. But so that Radio Row, I'll never forget going back to the Sleazy 8 in San Jose. It was this crappy little motel room that we had booked to stay in. Huey didn't even stay in it because he had to go back up to the city to do some work. But I just remember the feeling going into the hotel room, or motel room rather, and just being like, dude, I want to do that like all the time. And that was sort of the germ, the match, the spark that was for In the Click.
Hey, that's awesome, dude. And I've seen the Stardust interview, and then you fast forward a couple years later when Cody's the NWA champion. I think it was at a New Japan show in LA, and there's like a media scrum, and he's like, Bimbo Jimbo? And you're taking a knee next to him and Brandy and the 10 pounds of gold.
Yeah, that was, and I mean, I can't put over Cody enough in just terms of like the A+ person that he is. But yeah, that was another memory. So it was a New Japan show in Long Beach, and we were doing like the post-match interview, which is one of the things I love about New Japan shows in general. And yeah, he was just like, wait a minute, I know you. And so he had me come up there. He's like, get a look at the championships. And then I'm just like, just awkwardly kneeling next to him and Brandy for like a good period of time. Brandy's like talking, like whispering to me about how like Juice Robinson like scratched her or something like that. And that's a funny video. So if you haven't seen that, take a look at that one. It was just super cool. He's a good guy to put old Bimbo Jimbo on that pedestal there. It was cool.
That's awesome, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. So aside from In the Click and 107.7 The Bone, you do have a gig with the Warriors radio team for the Golden State Warriors. So how did that fall into your lap, and then what exactly do you do there?
Okay, so that's a great question. This is one of my favorite stories, and one of my things that I try when I go and speak at like colleges and stuff like that, or when I go back to SF State to talk to students. This is something that I try and harp on, because you never know who's listening. You never know who's watching you when you're working. And so I tell them, whatever you're doing, give it your absolute best. Don't do anything, halfway. And that's how I got the gig at the Warriors, because I was at KMBR. I was working the night shift, editing, highlights and quotes and stuff like that. But one of the things that we do as a tape editor is, at the time, Warriors games on the radio were on KMBR 680. And so I would edit Warriors highlights. And it's a very fast-paced sort of task, and it can be very difficult. It can be stressful, especially when you're new and this is your first gig, for this powerhouse station and everything like that. So I gave it my absolute all. And I'll never forget this, is that the first sort of like all staff email, like plaudits that I ever got was from somebody that worked for the Golden State Warriors. He was their senior broadcast producer. And he just said, hey, I don't know who was editing tonight, but whoever it was, like, great job. We need more like you. And so he got made aware of me, that it was I that was doing that. And he would start reaching out periodically being like, hey, are you working tonight? Like, it's a big game. I was like, I'm like, and either I would be or I wouldn't be. I was still part-time. And so, but from that, and this is another, sort of just, God acts in mysterious ways and opens doors at the right time kind of deal, is that I had gotten promoted at the radio station. And I'm sorry for the long-winded story, but I had gotten promoted at the radio station, and I was moved to middays producing one of the Monday through Friday shows, the Ted Ramey Show on KBR 1050. It was a wonderful show. But because cumulus is cumulus, that promotion didn't come with any sort of monetary sort of increase, and it meant that I lost my other job because it was right in the middle of the day. So I was like, man, like, I need like another gig. And this is absolutely the truth. I hadn't talked to anyone. I was just thinking, I was like, man, like, that guy from the Warriors really liked my editing. I wonder if they're hiring, if they could use me in some way. And before I could get his contact info again, my phone rang, and it was like a 510 number. I was like, hello? He's like, hey, is this James Kincaid? And I was like, yes, it is. He's like, hey, this is, blankety blank from the Golden State Warriors. I think I have a job that you might be perfect for. And that's exactly how it happened. I met with him. He explained to me what the job was, which was being essentially his another producer for the radio broadcast, editing interviews, highlights, stuff like that, helping essentially put the broadcast together. And he's like, I know your work. I know you'd be perfect for it. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So that's where it started. And so I worked it's funny. He told me, he's like, I don't want this to get in the way of your other gig at KMBR. And I knew after one game, I was like, I want to be here. This is what I love. Like, this is great. So that's how it got started. And from there, they made me full-time. I've been promoted, and, I went to China with them. I've been to Toronto for the finals with them, and lots of places in between. It's been a heck of a ride. And, since I got there, we've won 3 championships. So, all me, baby.
You got a ring, right?
I got 3, baby.
Hey, you're the only person I know with not Super Bowl, Jesus, NBA championship rings, dude. That's awesome, bro.
Thank you. I did nothing to earn them except just be there, but whatever. I'll take it.
You're a good luck charm, man. You're a good luck charm. All right. So, I mean, getting back to the wrestling world, you started calling APW late last year before, everything went upside down. Everything got suplexed on its head. So just how did that come about, man?
Well, so that is that's my dream, is to be a pro wrestling commentator or backstage interviewer or what have you. Like, that's always been for me in the back of my mind, is like, when somebody asks, hey, what's your dream job? It's that. And a friend of mine asked me that question, what do you want to do? Like, what's your ultimate goal? And I told him, and that was, I don't want to blow up his spot, as he is usually a dastardly heel, Mr. Mike Millerick. And he's like, well, why don't you do it then? Like, he's like, I think APW might have like a spot. Like let's talk to Marcus. And I was like, well, I don't want to put any pressure on him. Like, if he doesn't I don't want to feel like I'll feel a certain way or anything like that if he says no, kind of deal. Because I would totally understand, but he was like, no, like, I've actually been thinking about, like, I knew he was interested in it. Like, let's try him out and see. And like, we talked, and he's like, I think you're perfect for it. And so he's like, you're the guy. And started doing it and loved it. It's just as, like, the dream is just, it's so cool. And I get such a rush off doing it. That first one I'll never forget. And just, that's one of the things about this whole pandemic and the shutdown, is that, like, all pro wrestling is so good and it has such a rich lineage. And so to be the voice of APW and to even have just done a few shows, to me, it's my honor. And it's unfortunate that we haven't had to being able to have any shows yet in 2020. Hopefully something breaks and something turns around and we're able to do some cool stuff. But it's, even though it's been short-lived so far, it's something I'm looking forward to picking up the baton again when we can start having shows.
Absolutely, man. I've said it time and time again. I think APW is California's premier independent. And then you look at all the talent that comes through APW, and they're dominating in either Japan or AEW or MLW. You know, they're all over the place, man. And I think my favorite match or thing that you've called there was the Samoan Invasion.
Yeah.
When Jacob Fatu, Rikishi, just the whole Anawai family that's not in WWE just ran roughshod over APW. I was sitting next to the commentary table. I got Morrow vibes from you, bro. It was dope. I loved it.
That means a lot to me because Morrow is definitely somebody that I look up to and I have a lot of respect for in terms of how he calls the action. I was bummed to see that he is leaving NXT because in a lot of ways he is the face of that brand. So thank you for that compliment. That was a lot of fun to call. That was my first show. I'm pretty sure first or second show, maybe second, that where that went down. But yeah, I enjoyed that as well. And they were taking down Will Hobbs, who's now getting tons of shine in AEW, which is great to see. That was a fun one too. One of my highlights though, for All Pro Wrestling is now Preston Vance, at the time Cody Vanilla Vance, was wrestling, and I dubbed his finish the Nightmare Kick, and he took to it, and so he started using that because I didn't know what to call it, so I just called it on the fly. I was like, Nightmare Kick, and he liked it, so that was cool. I was like, oh shoot, made a little bit of an impact. I like that, so that was a cool moment as well.
I remember that. That was Halloween Hell last year.
Yeah,
that was dope. That was dope. But also you do work for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. How did that one come about?
So that's another cool one. So Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, obviously it's filmed down in Southern California, but it's been this long running studio pro wrestling show. I know people love NWA Power and everything like that, but Championship Wrestling from Hollywood also has been just putting out this kick butt studio wrestling show for a long time from the Ocean View Pavilion down there. And, got hooked up with David Marquez, who is the one that runs that down there. You know him as a personality on NWA Power, but he's, a big figure in professional wrestling. And Levi Shapiro put me in touch with him to be sort of the sort of like the straight man to Levi Shapiro, sort of like Bobby Heenan. Like if you're looking for because it's very much so like primetime wrestling vibes. It's a studio, like we're in the studio tossing to syndicated pro wrestling action that's pre-taped. And so Levi and I, banter around with one another, and then we kick it back to ringside kind of deal. So it's very, very primetime wrestling. So it's very sort of Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan. So they put me in touch with David, and he was excited to have somebody with a broadcasting background coming on, and that got going. And one of the cool things was, again, before the shutdown, is that we were shooting our segments at San Francisco State University. And they were thrilled to have us. It was getting students real life work experience because we do air on ABC7, which is this marquee station in the Bay Area. And so that was a really cool thing for me to be able to give back to those students. And that's a thing that I'm really super about. And I was so thrilled to be able to do that. So I'm hoping that when things, open back up again, that we'll be able to go back into the SF State studios and do that again, because it was a phenomenal experience for those kids.
Oh, absolutely. My boy Ulysses was
That's
helping out with you guys.
That's right. He did a great job too. Shout out Ulysses.
I'll text him about it so he can have his 10 minutes of fame.
I miss you, man.
Absolutely, dude. So, I mean, earlier this year, your time with inthekliq came to an end because you started with the Teno Media Network, and you brought back the Best Damn Nerds show, and you started the Wrestling War Room. What other shows are you hosting there, and what are they about?
So I do another one called Downloadable Cinema, and that was kind of the one that started it. And this is, a little inside baseball. I didn't know what the deal was with the network and stuff like that. I didn't know sort of what they wanted from me or anything. And they're, but that was the first one. It's like, we're starting this podcast thing, and want to try out on this movie one. And I thought I was just sort of going to be maybe consulting to start or doing the first few and whatnot. I didn't know. I didn't want to assume anything. And then sort of as it started getting fleshed out, it's like, we're one that's actually behind the Patreon, which you can check it out. It's bestdamnnerdshow.com/Patreon, and it'll take you to the full Teno Media Network Patreon. And you can listen to Iron Nerd, which is another one that I host, which is like a trivia show. So it's like Iron Chef, but instead of cooking, it's nerd trivia. So there's like a secret ingredient to every episode that like Dragon Ball Z or Star Wars and stuff like that. And so we'll have like, people challenge the Iron Nerds to this trivia off, and they don't know what the topic's going to be. It's a lot of fun. And then, Downloadable Cinema is one where we review movies, DLC for short, and then, Iron Nerd, Best Damn Nerd Show, which is a show that I started in college back in 2009, I guess it was. So we've been doing it for most of that time, but between the Warriors stuff and everything, I'd sort of fallen off. But because of the pandemic, it was like, well, let's get the band back together again and see what's there, and we could actually dedicate more time to it. And then with the launch of the Teno Media Network, there was interest there to like, yeah, we'd love that to be on the Teno Media Network. So they signed me on to host all those shows for them. So I keep busy. I keep very, very busy between that and the Warriors and everything with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And hopefully when APW starts running again, I will be a very busy guy. But it's a good thing. It's the blessed grind, as I say.
Hey, man, I'm looking forward to seeing you back at APW, obviously.
Thank you.
But you said 2009. What was podcasting like back then?
Very different. And we were so we started on campus radio, which essentially was podcasting at SF State because we didn't have like a signal. You could listen like online, we had an online signal or whatever that people could listen to, but essentially it was teaching kids how to podcast essentially. And it's funny going back because we were really, this is not to, blow smoke at myself or anything like that, but we were pretty unique for the time because it's certainly on campus. All the shows were either music based or sports or politics. And, it's like, we just wanted to have fun and talk about nerdy stuff, so it's like, why don't we take the name is a ripoff of the Best Damn Sports Show period, which was like the Tom Arnold, Chris Rose hosted show. And we're like, yeah, we're just going to like, what if we just did the Best Damn Nerd Show and we just talk about nerdy stuff? And that's what we did. And it was really well received. We won Best Original Radio Program in the broadcasting department that year. And the SF State broadcast department is very, well thought of and very competitive. So I'm super proud of that. And the response was really good. And this is pre a lot of other sort of nerd related shows before the world got saturated by it. We definitely were there at the forefront for a little while, but then, life pulled us in different directions, but then we decided to reboot it and come back strong. So it's been fun. And, there's some of my closest friends and we go to Comic-Con every year, of course, not this year. But we did that virtually together as well. So it's a cool group and it's a fun listen.
That's awesome, dude. So what kind of equipment are you using back in 2009?
So in 2009, we were on campus using their radio studios and stuff like that. But I graduated in 2009. So, and then I think we probably kept it on there through 2010 though, through various people that hadn't graduated yet that were on the show. But, shortly thereafter, it was using whatever gaming mic I had and patching into Skype and stuff like that. And it's like, I go back and we, listen to some of those early non-studio episodes and the audio is just brutal. It's just brutal. And, because also not everybody Ethernetted in and, using different internet connections and stuff like that. Some of it's tough, but we were doing the best we could to keep it going,
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
It was very low rent stuff though. There was no equipment budget at the time. I think we were using like bootleg Skype recording software and stuff like that. Just very on the cheap.
You got to do what you got to do. Because podcasting, I'd say since like 2015, 16, it really had a major boom. But to be doing it back then, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, it is funny looking back, and we definitely have all sort of taken our turn sort of waxing poetic, like I wish I knew then what I know now kind of deal, like because, if we had a business strategy and, plan to monetize it, I think that, I think Best Damn Nerd Show would probably be moderating and hosting a lot of these things that other people are doing because we really were, again, just sort of ahead of the curve on that sort of that boom But we're still having a good time with it. Now we got the Teno Media Network, which is a lot of fun, and they're doing great stuff. So everything works out the way it's supposed to.
Absolutely, man. So I want to get your thoughts on wrestling in the pandemic era.
Okay.
Let's go back to March when everything shuts down. AEW is running daily splits and they're running in some warehouse in Georgia for a month and a half, and WWE up until a couple weeks ago are in the Performance Center. What's been your thoughts all these months?
I think especially in the early going, AEW adapted much quicker and better than WWE did to the no fans in attendance. I think you can even go back to that first show that AEW ran with no fans, and even just how it started off with Cody, the Bucks, Kenny, and and Hangman. That whole promo bit and everything was just, they understood, it seemed, right from the jump, that's hey, we have to adapt our presentation and be a little bit different. They were the first ones to put people at ringside, which I thought was a phenomenal idea in terms of having faces and heels at different places, around the ringside, because you turn the channel to watch WWE and the silence is deafening when you didn't have people ringside or anything like that. Now, some of the wrestlers did get creative, started talking more trash in the ring, which I really appreciate. I thought that was good. But the ones that just sort of came out there and were working the same type of match in spite of no crowd, it was glaring that just wasn't going to work. And it made it kind of awkward. And I don't want to feel awkward watching wrestling. I love pro wrestling. So that was something that I noticed. And in terms of people's promos, you start to notice who really has a firm grasp on their character and who needs the crowd to be a character kind of deal. You got to know who sort of understands what their character would order in line at McDonald's versus the ones that only know what their character would do when the camera is on them and when fans are in attendance kind of deal. So that's been interesting to see unfold. Now, they were a little slow to adapt, but I do credit WWE finally, bringing the fans down to or the other performers down to ringside with the plexiglass and stuff like that. I thought that was good. I thought the plexiglass was a phenomenal touch. And immediately I was like, well, somebody's going to get thrown through that, and I can't wait for it, which they did. I believe Johnny Gargano had the dubious honor of being the first guy to get thrown through.
Takeover in your house. Yeah, yes. I think so.
Keith Lee, right?
Yeah.
So that, I think that's been good. I think Thunderdome is terrific. I think that is honestly a stroke of genius. I love it. And I was actually talking to a professor from San Francisco State, and she's very interested in how sports and wrestling have adapted during this time. I was like, well, let me send you a link to something here. And she was blown away by Thunderdome. It is really, I think, just a landmark sort of thing that a lot of people are going to borrow from. And so good for them. Shame on wrestling fans for, making Thunderdome not awesome. At times, this the quintessential, this is why we can't have nice things. All the complaining about WWE not listening to their fans or whatever. And they give you this awesome opportunity. And some of them, granted a small select few, but still what are we doing? Don't ruin this for everyone.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you look at it from when they were showing the empty chairs and we're like, oh no. And then AEW and WWE took the Ring of Honor shot, which is show the ramp, hard cam on the ramp. But I love that. And the plexiglass and the fans, they really have added to it. And WWE, the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how you have to say it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's funny. The real low point, I think, of pandemic era wrestling, I hate to say it, but it was Stone Cold Steve Austin on 316 Day doing the "Give Me a Hell Yeah" thing, and they pan over to the crowd. Now, I get that it's funny and stuff like that, but it's just cringe. No good.
Yeah. They should have just canceled that.
They should just had Byron go, "Oh hell yeah!" Don't pan to an empty stadium or whatever you want to call it.
It was not good at all. But I mean, Thunderdome, it's really helped. I mean, it feels like Raw again. It feels like SmackDown again. Pay-per-views, they feel so much better because I was like, we're getting closer to SummerSlam. They have to get out of this place. They have to.
And I do want to give WWE credit for WrestleMania this year, because I was very skeptical going in terms of what it was going to be like, and the moving it to 2 days, which I'm pro in general that WrestleMania should be a 2-day event at this point with the amount of time that they want people to invest into it. But even without the crowd, I thought they put on a hell of a show. I really do. I thought this year's WrestleMania was way better than it had any business being, and it sucks for certain people like Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman that their crowning moments were met with silence, other than their own celebration. But that's the breaks, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, we got to, as Drew said on In the Click, when you guys interviewed him, that you will get to see private moments from wrestlers that you don't normally get to see.
Yeah.
And you got to see that from him, and so I thought that was really cool. But, I mean, yeah, with WrestleMania, the cinematic matches, you have Taker and AJ in the
Boneyard
match, and then you have Cena and the Bray Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse match. Yeah. Which one did you like better?
I actually like the Firefly Funhouse match better. I think so. I think that there are better ways of sort of tempering expectations for these things. And I'll take you to the swamp match from Extreme Rules, horror show Extreme Rules kind of deal, is that I liked that swamp match. I wouldn't have called it the swamp match, though. I wouldn't have billed it with this expectation that there's going to be a fall recorded and like something sort of settled. I would start pitching these things that are going to happen more cinematically as, and Braun Strowman is going to have a confrontation with Bray Wyatt at his own, like in his lair in the swamp. So it's like, something's going to happen there, but you don't come into it with this expectation of like, there's going to be a referee, a 1, 2, 3 or a submission or something like that. It's like, but hey, we know at the pay-per-view, they're going to have a confrontation. It's going to be this cinematic deal. It's no different than promoting Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth's wedding at SummerSlam. It's like, it's the match made in heaven. It's not an actual match. It's not, you're not going into this expecting that, Macho Man is going to be wrestling somebody. So I think there's better ways of them presenting some of these things, like the Firefly Funhouse. I really enjoyed, but it was I think a lot of people had expectation that there was going to be sort of a more definitive, like pinfall kind of deal. And that's not really what we got. It was stepping into the mind of the Fiend / Bray Wyatt. And I thought it was a lot of fun in that regard, completely bananas, and you don't want to overdo it. But that being said, I know a lot of people love the Boneyard match. I was way too harsh on it in the moment because there's just some stuff in there that I thought was kind of stupid, like the way the Druids showed up and, how bad Anderson and Gallows looked. Like they just got totally – now, I mean, I guess it makes sense knowing what happened to them before, or after rather. But, to take her straight up like tried to kill one of them, I think. Just, cinematically, of course. But looking back and watching it again afterward, that was a good match. And whether that's Undertaker's last match or not, I'm still not fully sold. But
Man, we never know. We never know. Sean should have beat him at 26. Should have beat him at 25.
Should
have beat him at 25, in my opinion, bro.
God bless you for saying so.
Hey, man, we're Sean guys here.
Yes, I feel very safe. I feel seen. So,
but, I mean, back
you
to
see this on the Warriors broadcast, by the way, in the locker room. This is what I record the interviews on. So this
hey, there you go.
I always angle the phone case, the Shawn Michaels phone case, towards the camera just to give HBK his just due, whenever I can. So
got to, man. As I look at my autographed Shawn Michaels bag here in my room.
I love it.
Yeah, but back to the cinematic matches. Let's talk about Big Match John behind me here. I mean, the Firefly Funhouse, it was really just the tale of his career. The bright tights where he wasn't – I mean, he got over the first night against Angle, but it really just kind of went downhill. Then he becomes the doctor of thugonomics. And then, you get to the I think my favorite part was that you can look but you can't touch, throwing a little nod at Nikki Bella.
Oh, so good. Yes, love that.
That was great. And then you get to the NWO part where, like, oh, my God, he really is Hogan. He just never turned heel. You just get through all that. And I love the 24. I feel like they should have went behind the scenes with that more of the creative process. That would have been great. But, yeah, man, I mean, the cinematic matches, they have helped the Stadium Stampede in AEW. I thought that was very well done. The Britt Baker Big Swole one, I actually really liked it. I mean, look, I was like, ooh, I hope they do like Novocaine and like gas, which they did,
Yeah.
but like I felt like there should have been like a little bit more umph to it,
So
in my
what
personal opinion.
it's funny because I do feel like that I liked it more than most people that I've seen. I came into it very sort of like, I don't know, like another gimmick on this card kind of deal, and like felt kind of forced, but it was only 10 minutes. So it moved by really quickly, in my opinion. The right person won in Big Swole, and Britt Baker's character work continues just to be really, really great in AEW since her heel turn. So I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. So I know it wasn't perfect. It wasn't this Matt Classic or anything like that, and maybe it doesn't compare favorably in some people's mind to the Boneyard match. But in terms of just, I thought it was fun, and it flew by to me. And at no point did I feel like it was dragging, and I was like, God, can they wrap this up? So I appreciate it for that too.
All right. Who do you think has been the MVP in the pandemic era?
Randy Orton has been, in my opinion, the standout in the pandemic era. I think I actually enjoyed his last man standing match with Edge at WrestleMania. Maybe it was a little bit too long. I enjoyed the storytelling of that whole deal, the follow-up and the rematch at Backlash with the greatest wrestling match ever, which hilarious that they would sort of why even do that to yourselves. But I'll be damned if they didn't nearly deliver. It was a fantastic match, and it was so good that billing isn't embarrassing. But the fact that they put that much pressure on themselves and that they delivered a match as good as they did is incredible. It sucks that Edge got injured, but I thought that match was a piece of creative genius, having Randy Orton win, because now heel a-hole Randy Orton can go around saying, I'm Randy Orton, I won the greatest wrestling match ever, beats down Christian. I just think he's been on another level. He has had these sort of flashes of just when he has the wrestling world in the palm of his hand and just has sort of this mastery over character and what he wants to do. And he's in another one of those zones right now. So I think Randy Orton has definitely been the MVP of the pandemic era.
Absolutely, man. I mean, people say Randy, like, he gets bored. That may be true, but even when he's bored, he's still putting on better matches than half of the roster. Let's be real. He's such a talented guy, and I kind of miss him. I miss him with Rick, because just the idea of Randy Orton, he won the greatest wrestling match ever, but he's being accompanied to the ring by the greatest wrestler ever.
Yeah.
There was something about that. I loved it, and, damn Randy Orton for kicking Ric Flair in the head.
Yeah, I would have almost waited for him to, because I wanted, like, I've enjoyed Drew McIntyre's reign. I'm looking forward to, I will say this, and I think Drew has done good with the championship, and people will say, oh, Randy doesn't need the championship, but the championship might need Randy right now. And that's so that, and I do believe that. And I think that it would have been more meaningful if Randy wins it and then he kicks Rick to the curb, because look, this is mine. You can't hang on here anymore, old man, kind of deal. I also like what Randy put out into the ether on Twitter. I don't know if you saw this. He's like, so I get to 16 championships, and then it's me versus John Cena at WrestleMania to see who gets to 17, and then we both retire afterward.
Probably. What are your thoughts on I don't think I've ever asked you this. What are your thoughts on the 16 official, but then the unofficial Rick with like actually 21? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I haven't gone too far down that rabbit hole in a long time. Like the numbers of Ric Flair championships, like it fluctuates depending on who you ask and who believes what's official or not. I never had a problem really with the 16 official reigns. I think that they should have sussed all of that out, and sort of maybe made it more definitive of why it's the 16 and not the 21 or whatever the number is, kind of deal. But I think in terms of somebody to share it with, I think there's no shame in sharing the record number of reigns with John Cena. But I do think that John Cena passing Ric Flair with 17 is something that I think should happen, because nobody wants a tie, right? You want somebody to be the number one with a bullet. John Cena is a Titan Tower guy. Has been. So I think that not saying he's a has been, I'm saying he has been a Titan Tower guy. And I love John Cena. So I do want to see him get 17. I think that's a WrestleMania moment that's been waiting to be made. I actually thought that we would have seen it by now. He doesn't have to have a long reign, but I think that is something that would be really special.
Absolutely, man. I mean, with the 21 or whatever, I mean, they've acknowledged it more over the years. Like
Yeah.
even in Rick's promo, like I don't want you to break Cena's record, I want you to break my record, kind of like a wink, wink.
Yeah, totally.
You know, stuff like that. But I don't know. I'd love to see, you know, who gets number 17, either Cena or Randy. I think Randy, he's what, 14, so he has to win 2 more, and
Yeah.
then we can have that match happen. You think Randy takes it off Drew at Clash of Champions? I think so. I think it's time.
I think he does too. I actually was surprised that he didn't do it at SummerSlam, because Randy's kind of been Mr. SummerSlam, and I kind of like that sort of that booking. But yeah, I think Randy takes it at Clash.
Absolutely, man. Do you think anybody else has been an MVP of the pandemic era? I think MVP himself.
MVP's been great
with the Hurt Business.
Yeah, he's been because when he first came back, you know, he put out there's like, oh, it was a one-time thing. I just wanted my son to see me wrestle, and you know, and then he starts doing the MVP lounge, and then he starts dipping a toe back into wrestling. He has been really, really good as well. He's definitely another standout. Over on the AEW side, you know, Darby Allin is just a standout guy in general. Chris Jericho, though, you can't say enough about how good he continues to be. And so he's definitely another MVP as well, because he's still top tier and he's still making guys. You know, Orange Cassidy, I think he identified a rising star in Orange Cassidy. He said, I'm going to cement him as a big time player. And that's exactly what he did in their 3-match series. So I would say Chris Jericho, in terms of AEW, he's been their MVP of the pandemic era. The demo god, man.
Yes, our drinking buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate that again, by the way, man. That is one of the coolest things I've ever done, guys. Let's tell a quick story. So it's the Fozzy concert last year at Slim's in SF, and you know, Jimbo and Huey told me to hang.
R.I.P. Slims.
R.I.P. Oh yeah. Oh Jesus. R.I.P. Jimbo and Huey told me to hang back, and you know, they asked Jericho if it's cool if I can go down there, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, these guys didn't have to do that for me, and like, I appreciate that so much. Like,
Philip, it was our honor, and you're good people, and I'm humbled that you would even think to thank me, but that was just tons of fun, man. And I'm glad it was such a special deal for you, and it was cool, man. Chris Jericho's a great guy.
He is. Like, I was just quiet, but on the inside, I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
You're having a drink with Le Champion.
Yeah, a little bit of the bubbly. It was great, man. What are your thoughts on AEW bringing actual fans back into attendance?
Love it. I think that they're probably following all of the correct protocols, I would assume, given, you know, everything with the Khan family, and, you know, they don't want to step out of line. So I think, you know, that was one of the standout moments, was Chris Jericho coming out to do commentary and hearing fans sing along to Judas again. Brought a little like Ric Flair said after the Royal Rumble, with a tear in my eye kind of deal. That was special stuff. So I'm glad to see at least some fans back there for sure.
Absolutely, man. Now, as we wind down here, we're going to hit that rapid fire series I was telling you about. So, favorite match you've called?
Oh man, favorite match I've called. Jake Atlas, Timothy Thatcher is one that definitely jumps to mind. It was their last match, both of their last match in All Pro Wrestling, and it just sort of highlighted, you know, some of just the names that come through the Bay Area in All Pro Wrestling, and just, you know, whether it be West Coast Pro or Pro Wrestling Revolution or All Pro Wrestling, like the Bay Area just has so many just great places for people to come and shine. So that's one. The Rock and Roll Express versus Fatu and Samael as well was really cool. Just, you know, just an honor to call, you know, a Rock and Roll Express match, right? Like, it's something I never thought that I would get to do. Super awesome guys too, and, you know, got to thank them for allowing me to, you know, do that was special as well. Any match with Will Hobbs, I always have a lot of fun calling. He did that Bunkhouse Stampede again, where the Samoans invaded and stuff. So that's another one also.
All right. Favorite interview you've done?
Okay, I got a couple. Stardust, because of the whole, like, what that spawned, Bimbo Jimbo or whatever, whether you love it or you hate it. It just is kind of cool that he was able to sort of, give that creation to me and let me use it in my career. That was awesome. And also just a really fun interview. If you haven't listened to it, hit up Baby Huey and ask him where to find it in the archives on Podomatic or whatever, because that was pre-inthekliq technically. But that's just a great interview. Paul Heyman from that same Radio Row was a big one for me because I'm such a ECW original fan. Was a big part of sort of my wrestling fandom. And it only grew in terms of serving to be an inspiration on, like, look at right now, Paul Heyman producing ECW out of his parents' basement, like cutting whatever financial corner he had to keep that show going, and everything is inspirational. I know it didn't end the way that anybody wanted it to, but it's something that I definitely reflect on. So interviewing Paul Heyman was definitely one. And then Becky Lynch, she came to Oracle Arena, and she toured Chase Center. It was before Chase Center opened. And this one was cool for me because it was Warriors Radio being like, hey, you're up, man. We need somebody to interview her, and you're the guy. So and my boss was like, and we got you like an extra 15 minutes so you can use it for your podcast too. So it was interviewing for the halftime show, pre-recorded, but also for inthekliq at the time, which was just a really cool sort of nod and, little inside baseball, like a bunch of like the corporate people were in there listening because we were plugging Chase Center and WWE coming to Chase Center, and it was like reveal week. So it was like a very like big deal kind of thing. And I just remember some of like the executives like, oh, that was awesome, man. Like you hit all the right things. And like, and she was just a phenomenal interview subject. And it was her and I one-on-one, face-to-face. And we both were just like, I think both of our passion for wrestling, just playing off one another, was just really special. So that's definitely one for me also.
I remember that interview, man. I remember she was just like getting into their grooves. And I kind of felt it through my headphones. I was like, "Oh, this is great, dude!"
Yeah, it was phenomenal. That was a special one for sure.
That was like when she just became the man, right? That was like on the rise.
It was in the lead up to WrestleMania 35, and it was before it was known that it would be the main event. And so hearing her talk about like that she wants it to be the main event because it's the most important match, and yeah, just really cool stuff.
Absolutely, dude. Guys, go listen to that. It's a really good interview, hands down. Favorite tag team of all time?
This is a random one, but my honest to goodness favorite tag team of all time are Booker T and Goldust. They were short-lived, but they entertained me greatly. Go back and watch their vignettes with one another. They were my favorite sort of like odd couple, strange bedfellows, sometimes literally pairing. So go back and watch like Booker T and Goldust at the movies, or when Goldust is hiding in Booker T's hotel room, or the 7-Eleven costume. Like a lot of times when WWE tries to be funny, it doesn't work. But Booker T is so dang creative and so funny. Dustin is so creative and so funny. They were magic. And when they became tag team champions, that was one of my big time, even at that age, still like marking out moments, because I didn't think that this comedy duo was going to become tag team champions, but they did. And it was really special. I wish they hadn't broke them up so soon, but yeah, that's my favorite tag team, random as it is. And I know they're technically greater tag teams, but for me, personal enjoyment, it was them.
Hey, dude, that's what's up. I'm sure my Dustin autograph is smiling
I love
back
it,
here.
dude. Love it.
All right. I already know the answer to this, but favorite match of all time?
Okay. So I'll give a little backstory. So the one match that I will tell anyone who asks me, like if they were to ask me, why do you love wrestling? If I could show them one match, the answer is always the same. It's WrestleMania 24. It's Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels with Ric Flair's career on the line. I think it is the greatest story ever told in a pro wrestling ring. The "I'm sorry, I love you" moment is I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, and it is just so incredibly special. I think I think it's the best match ever, and I was fortunate enough to be able to tell Charlotte Flair that at that WrestleMania Radio Row, which she appreciated. But yeah, that to me, that's number one for me for sure.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it's a master class. It holds up, and for Rick to be that late in the game to I mean, he talks about how Sean carried him throughout the match, but it takes two to tango.
No doubt about it. And I think a lot of things that get lost is like wrestling is storytelling. So you don't have to do, like, a lot of times great spots do make a great wrestling match. And that one certainly had some big spots. Sean's moonsault onto the corner of the table comes to mind. But, looking beyond that, they were telling a cohesive narrative story throughout that match. And that's why it was so special. And, yeah, to me, it hasn't been topped. Probably going to watch it later now.
I might have to, too. Rick retired that night, and that is it. Nothing else happened.
Exactly right. Well, I'll allow Jay Lethal impersonating Ric Flair to happen.
Okay, he never wrestled again. That's
correct. And neither
never
did Sean
wrestled.
After 26. Not once.
Not once. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. All right. What's your favorite gimmick of all time? Like, is it Gold Dust? Is it is it a Repo Man? Is it a Max Moon?
That's a Max Moon. That's a great question. And that's actually one I've never been asked before that I can recall. I would probably say the $1 Million Man is my favorite gimmick of all time. It's just, gosh, the $1 Million Championship was so cool. I love the suits with the dollar signs on it, whether it was the black and gold old school one or the green one that was like money. Yeah, I'll go with $1 Million Man. Goldust is up there too. Of course, Undertaker and Kane also, but I'll go with Ted DiBiase, $1 Million Man.
I can hear the laugh now in my head.
Dude, one of my first, actually my very first Comic-Con, and I'm not usually a big autograph or photo guy, but, this was my first one, and I had a little flip cam, and, I was like, hey, $1 Million Man, like, instead of like an autograph or a photo, like, would you just like cut a promo on me or cut a promo? And he was like, yeah, sure. And so like I have like on my Facebook somewhere, it's $1 Million Man doing the laugh and like the everybody's got a price thing. And it just made me so dang happy. He still had it. And it was funny too, because he's like, I'll be right with you. I'm counting my money. I'm very particular about my money. Like joking, like totally, so good. Yeah, good guy.
Was Virgil with him?
Virgil, I think, was with him, if memory serves.
Wow. Virgil was just standing there with the sleeves cut off?
I think he was there, if I recall correctly.
All right, and I already know the answer to this. Favorite wrestler of all time?
That's a tough one. I mean, who to choose from? Is it The Undertaker? No. Bret Hart? Certainly not, although he is a legend.
Isaac Yankem.
Close.
Okay.
The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Ain't nobody crazy enough to do that gig except the Heartbreak Kid. Mr. WrestleMania, Mr. Hall of Fame, he is what the name on the marquee is all about. Always delivers in the big-time spots. I love Shawn Michaels.
Absolutely, man. Often I've said it so many times, the greatest in-ring performer ever. I've never been captivated by any other performer in a match. I mean, he's lying down, he does the nip up, and he starts tuning up the band, just the whole presentation. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a spectacle.
I never thought that I would get to see him wrestle like that, have the second act of his career that he ended up having. That was such a blessing and such a treat to so many wrestling fans because he legitimately was done after 98, and it's like he was one of the first ones that was like, oh, shoot, he really, you look at like Daniel Bryan and Edge and stuff like that, but Shawn Michaels was the first one of those guys like, oh, he's coming back? Like, none of us that were watching thought that was possible. And to come back at the level to be as good, and some people, I think a lot of people would say even better than he was pre-98. So it's just incredible, and what a blessing to get that out of him. And go out of your way. One of Jim Ross's greatest calls, that Survivor Series 2002, when Shawn won the World Heavyweight Championship in the first Elimination Chamber. It was Jim Ross's "Do You Believe in Miracles" moment, and he's yelled himself hoarse. You can hear he's like, Shawn Michaels believed in himself. He believed in his ability. So good, with confetti raining down, Madison Square Garden.
The Dutch boy haircut.
Dutch boy haircut and the unfortunate tights, but I choose not to focus on that. It was a great moment.
I mean, Shawn's awesome, man. I mean, my first wrestling show I ever went to was a Raw at the Oracle in 2009, and Shawn, he wrestled Mark Henry that night, and like, just to see a guy that I'll say idolize or whatever, but just like I love Shawn Michaels. He's the dude. He's the dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, last up, I want to know where the name Microphone Alchemist came from, because I looked up the definition for alchemist, and a person who transforms or creates something through a seemingly magical process.
Well, I mean,
It's self-explanatory.
I'm turning verbal air into gold, into verbal gold. So the Microphone Alchemist came about because the traditional alchemist is that somebody that would turn lead into gold or some other substance into gold, and kings would search and hire for these people. But I'm a big fan of the anime Full Metal Alchemist, and so it's on Netflix right now. I encourage you to check it out. And so basically the alchemists in that show are they have sort of borderline magical powers. It's not magic, it's alchemy, and they're able to sort of transform things, and it's how they fight and do battle. It's this very cool show with these very dark storyline. But each of the alchemists, when they go to work for the state alchemists, which are the sort of the military alchemists, when they're militarized, they have their own code names. So the main character of the show is the Full Metal Alchemist because he has a metal arm, and there are other ones like the I'm blanking, the whatever alchemist kind of deal. And so for me, it's when we were talking with friends, what would be your alchemist name? And I was like, well, I guess I'd be the Microphone Alchemist because I'm a broadcaster. So that would be my code name. And hence the Microphone Alchemist was born.
There you go. The Microphone Alchemist and the Microphone Messiah.
There it is.
Chopping it up, man. I love it, dude. Jimbo, thank you so much for coming on, man. I've appreciated our friendship over the last couple of years. You're doing the damn thing, and I hope to be where you are someday. You're an inspiration to me, brother.
Oh, you're far too kind, Philip. And this has been my pleasure. Anytime, dude, you want to talk wrestling with old Bimbo Jimbo, you just give me a call, man. I'm here for it. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. Where can the people find the Microphone Alchemist?
That's good. Let me check. Because I always forget this. It's the Bimbo Jimbo on Twitter. It's bimbo.jimbo on Instagram. Hit me up on there. Follow me. Message me, tweet at me, whatever you want to do. I love talking wrestling with anyone that wants to talk the wrestles with me.
Absolutely, man. Ladies and gentlemen, the Microphone Alchemist, Bimbo Jimbo, James Kincaid. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.